Well, I think history has shown us that the British government has had virtually no interest here in the affairs of the business of people here because, let's face it, and even in terms of the referendum around Brexit, the majority of people here in the north of Ireland voted to remain in the EU. British government, despite that, are determined to drag us out of the EU. In the recent elections, the British government, the Tory party, didn't receive one MP elected here in the north of Ireland. In fact, any of their candidates who ran got a very derisory number of votes. So Theresa May has absolutely no mandate here.
But just to be clear, you will not take seats in Westminster, even if there's a very finely balanced vote, for example, on something like Brexit. You would not take your seats here, even if you could make the difference to, for example, reversing or softening Brexit.
We have actually had a very strong mandate, and in fact we've taken seats from the SDLP, for example, who have been arguing for years that they needed to be in Westminster to have their voice heard. The nationalist population here have acknowledged that that voice has been repeatedly ignored and contemptuously so, and our party has received a very sizable mandate to stay away from Westminster. The northern nationalist population have decided that no longer do we have any confidence whatsoever in people in Westminster to look after our interests. Now, we will do that on the island of Ireland.
Now, a very important principle has been that the British government is neutral between unionists and nationalists in Northern Ireland. Are you confident that the British government can remain neutral and will respect that neutrality if it is reliant on DUP votes in order to maintain its majority here in London?
Well, I think this current arrangement may well prove to be reckless, but we'll have to wait and see. We will reflect on that. We have argued for some considerable time, particularly in recent times. The British government have been working in cahoots with particularly the Democratic Unionist Party to the disadvantage of the political process here. In fact, they called off the talks here very recently to re-establish our institutions. And I would add that the British public should actually have close scrutiny of the DUP and what that party represents and their behaviour in government here, because we have no government here in the north of Ireland precisely because of the behaviour and the arrogance and the alleged corruption of the DUP in government here in the north. So, people need to make sure they understand what they're getting if they get the DUP in the government with the Tory party.
What do you think the DUP will want to get out of Theresa May when they sit and say, we can give you a majority?
Well, the only thing that the DUP have ever really argued for, first of all, they've been in a craven way supportive of the Tories. They're supportive of the austerity agenda. They're supportive of the cuts. They're supporting Brexit. And that's notwithstanding the fact that the majority of people here in the north, including many unionists, voted to remain in the EU. So the DUP are going to face a mighty challenge because they're now going to go into an arrangement with the Tory party in Britain to exercise and to implement Brexit against the wishes of their own community here in the north of Ireland. So that'll be a significant challenge for the DUP to square away. Are the DUP going to support policies which will foment and create further austerity, budget cuts to our health service and so on? So I think those are big challenges which the DUP will have to face. But I would urge the British public to scrutinise the membership of the DUP, their behaviour in government here, their homophobia, their behaviour on race issues, their discriminatory policies here. All of these matters led to the downfall of our institutions here just a number of months ago, and that's the party that Theresa May is looking to bring into government with herself in London.
Mr Maskey, just one last one. Clearly the arrangements, the Good Friday Agreement arrangements have broken down. There's some possibility even of direct rule from Westminster, which I know you would hate. How bad can it get? What is the worst case, do you think, over the next year, 2 years, 5 years, if things don't improve?
Well, let's be very clear. The British government are co-guarantor, if you like. They have to implement and be truthful and faithful to the Good Friday Agreement. It's an international binding treaty between the British government and the Irish government. So we will expect the British government to honour their commitments in respect of the Good Friday Agreement. That means that they have to remain neutral, and we will be very carefully monitoring the behaviour of the British government in the time ahead. But remember this, one of the reasons why the Sinn Féin received a very resounding mandate to stay away from Westminster is because the nationalist population has seen the behaviour, the partisan behaviour of this current British government over the last number of years. So therefore we will watch what's happening very carefully in terms of how the British government behaves, and as I've said, this will lead to a serious political challenge.